Hi everyone. Today I'm joined by Nicki Bradwell, and we're going to be talking about art for younger teenagers. Nicki has been on the podcast before, and her Arise Art and Design class has been hugely popular these last 2 years. Nicki, can you begin by telling us a little bit about your homemade journey?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So I have one son who's 12, and I've been home educating him for 5 years. He initially went to school for a few months between the lockdowns, which was a horrible time to start school. And yeah, sitting still all day just wasn't for him. So he is very much a kinesthetic learner. And as a teacher myself, I'm from an art and design teacher background. There are 7 learning styles. And so very quickly I knew I had to figure out how he liked to learn or how he needed to learn best. And he is a visual learner and a kinesthetic learner. So a lot of what we do is to do with moving around or changing from a few things to another because he needs variety. So part of his week is built up with forest school and different sporting activities, climbing and judo and things like that. But the way that we have found that we work best together is through project-based learning.
Mhm.
So he needs to see a relevance of why he's learning something, and he needs to see a real world context. And actually, given half the chance, he would just go out and get a job already. He doesn't want to learn about how to do something, he just wants to go and do it. He has to see the connection between why he's learning it, and it has to be interesting to him. So
Mhm.
project based learning works really well for us. And just a little example, we're currently using this beautiful book called The Stuff That Stuff Is Made Of, and it's all about plants and where they grow in the world and things
Mhm.
like that. So for example, last week we were learning about rubber, the rubber trees, and we learned about where they grow in the world. So beautiful introduction to geography.
Mhm.
Why do they grow there? The climate, things like that. So then we looked at the couple of the countries. We looked at some of their maps and things like that related to that country. We then looked at the life cycle of the rubber tree. How long does it take
Yep.
to produce rubber? What kind of landscape does it like to grow in, those kind of things. Then we looked at how it's processed. So how do they physically get the rubber out of the tree? Then we looked at what do they do with that rubber? How do they process it after that? What products do we use? And actually, when we started to list off all the things, we realized that we actually use it a lot more in our day than we
Yeah.
realized. Um, and then we did a little experiment, which is usually always we usually bring in something physical like that.
Mhm.
So we did a little experiment where you can actually make your own sort of rubber from milk by boiling it and then or heating it, and then you add vinegar,
Oh, I
and it
think
goes
we've
into
done that.
this
Yep.
incredible texture, and it actually goes really quite hard at the end. So,
Mhm.
um, so yes, that's a lot of the way we do that. Also, because I'm from an art background, we try to bring in creativity as often as
Yeah.
possible, and so and also nature study. Nature study is a huge part.
Mhm.
So for a few years, he's a bit more resistant as he gets a wee bit older, but we kept beautiful nature journals and things that we saw just in our day or changes in the seasons, and we would draw them or research them and put little notes
Mhm.
in the nature journals, things like that. So it's quite varied. He's not very keen on sitting and opening up a curriculum and just working straight from that. So I have to be quite creative.
Yeah.
We use YouTube, we use a lot of books, we get outside a lot. Um, yeah, we also go to a home ed co-op, a Christian home ed co-op, which has been a lovely sort of staple thing every few weeks, and
Mhm.
meeting up with a lovely group there. So yeah, it's very varied.
I think that's really interesting because I think regardless of the learning style, a lot of boys, not every boy, and I'm sure there'll be
Yeah.
girls as well, but a lot of boys need to know the why am I having to learn this? And if I don't have a reason to learn it,
Yes.
I'm not going to learn it.
Yeah.
And it can be really challenging for, yeah, especially there are degrees to this. I've seen it with my own boys that there are degrees to kind of like why can't be bothered with this? What's the point of learning this? But
Hmm.
doing it anyway to the I I'm not going to learn this. I don't need it.
Yes.
And it's like it can be really
Yes.
quite challenging.
I've also found as I've gone through that I've actually gotten to the point just myself that there were things that I learned at school which I found difficult. And actually, I feel like actually some of the things I haven't used. So I'm actually being quite selective in you
Hmm.
know, what I do with him. And, for example, if I sat down and made him memorize all the kings and queens and things like that, he would be miserable. But we've been out. The way we study history is we go to historic locations, and we take a book with us, about them, the whatever the era is, and we read about it and we explore. And actually, I have found that he retains so much more of it
Yeah.
rather than just memorizing things, or I'll find a really interesting story, to do with that era and sort of pull him in that way. But yeah, he actually, from stories and things, he hears it and he remembers a lot more than if I made him kind of write it, or
Yeah.
which we do a little bit of, but a lot more of it is out and about. So
We did a lot of that for history, just the visiting the places, doing like this kind of historical reenactment stuff and
yeah, yeah,
looking at the days that well, Historic Scotland had on and like medieval pageants and
yes, it brings it
World
to
War Two
life.
thing.
I
It
enjoy
does. Yeah,
it.
I enjoy it too.
I enjoy it
And
more.
it really does when they can actually touch real bows and arrows and real swords and
Yes, yes.
than just sitting memorizing facts.
And I
The
find actually those people that are doing their reenactments are so passionate about that era and what they're doing that their passion brushes off on us, and it
Mhm.
makes the kids curious to learn about it.
Yeah. We once did a one summer we did I planned lots of day trips to historical sites that linked to Mary Queen of Scots. So we
Hmm.
talked a lot about Mary Queen of Scots' life and her read stuff and books about her, but then went to all the different
Yeah,
places that had strong, not everyone, but a lot of the places that had really strong links to her as a
yeah,
way of reinforcing it and just spent that a lot of time in that era. And we did another one where we did the next year we did the Jacobites, I went to
yeah,
Jacobite places.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
absolutely.
it's some kids like one of my daughters. My oldest daughter. She would have sat and read every book about a
Yes,
subject and retained it and loved
yeah.
it and been and just yeah. But my boys not so much.
But I think that's the beauty of home education, is that you really truly get to know your children and
Hmm.
really what makes them thrive.
Hmm.
You know, putting a book in front of my son, he does read and he enjoys it and he's a very good reader.
Hmm.
But if he hears an audiobook, he takes it in better.
Yeah,
So just knowing your child and finding, a way around that.
yeah, and that I found that as that yeah that in this with that as well the curating of the books
Mhm.
again I found um some of my children will just read anything.
Yeah,
They will just pick up anything. But I'm not like that. I can't just like I love reading
yes,
and I'll read really widely and deeply, but I can't just pick up any book and
no,
read it. It has to
yeah,
interest me, but also I'm quite particular in my writing style as well, which is
yes,
yeah. But I've got kids that they I can't just hand them. Oh, this is a book
yes.
that everybody says is brilliant and everybody loves it and it's really good for you to read this book.
Mhm.
They won't just read it if it doesn't.
No, but I'm finding the same. I didn't really enjoy reading when I was growing up. It was very much a chore for me. And I've really tried hard with my son to make sure there's real joy in it. So we
Mhm.
try to be really selective about which, like trying to find things like styles that he likes. And actually, we've both really found over the last few while, we found an author that we really loved and read all of her books together. And when we were finished them, we actually felt almost like a sense of grief because there wasn't another one. And we were like, oh, we just love this. And we've actually struggled recently to get into a new book because it's not her.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find something else.
I think my daughter felt like that about oh the lady who wrote Anna Green Gables, Montgomery, Lucy
Montgomery.
Montgomery, yeah, Montgomery.
Yeah.
She read everything
Oh,
numerous times,
yeah.
and it was just like there wasn't. She didn't write enough books to
Yes,
keep her
yes.
going. But, the other day, Shannon and I were actually curating book lists the other day,
Yeah,
and talk books that we'd both kind of read to our children when they were younger.
yeah.
And Shannon was like, "I love this book," and I'm like, "I hated that book."
Isn't that funny? Do you know, the other day I picked up a book which I didn't realize how old it was. The front cover was contemporary. They'd obviously given it a new cover. And
Mhm.
I'd had it on the bookshelf for ages and I was so excited to read it with my son. And so we waited until there was a gap and we picked it up the other night. And actually it was written, oh, I don't know, 1930 or something. And the writing style, I was tripping over my words and there wasn't a
Mhm.
flow to it. And I was like, gosh, it's just a different style,
Yeah.
and we ended up deciding not to read it just now. We might read it in a few more years or something, but yeah, it's funny.
I have found if there's books that sometimes the books if I'm reading them aloud and I'm tripping over them, like
Yeah,
I can't get into the flow of the style.
yes,
And but I know if I read this just to myself and wasn't reading aloud, I'd be fine with it.
yeah,
But then it's sometimes switching it to an audiobook
yes,
that works too.
yes,
And
yeah.
sometimes it's just not the right book.
No, and I've found that actually that there's just sometimes it's just not a right book for that time because we've gone
Mhm.
back and picked up other things that we thought we weren't going to enjoy and ended up loving it. Like one of
Yes.
our favorite books that we've ever read was Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim. We just loved that book. We just couldn't put it down. And yeah, there's been so many others that we've like. There was a book I can't remember the name of it now. Lost Dog, maybe. But the author only wrote one book, but it was so lovely and so well written, and we just really enjoyed it. And that there was only one, there was no more, so we were sad.
Sad. Yeah. I've heard a lot of people say the Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim is very good. I need to. We've never read it. It's not been one that we've
Oh,
ever encountered, but I think I might.
I lent my copy to a friend, and I've never got it back, and I've kind of resigned myself to it being gone. But it's really worth reading. We really
Mhm.
enjoyed it.
I think I might
So
have to get that one. I think my younger girls would maybe enjoy it.
yes,
Anyway, we've gone down on a book tangent.
we could do a
We're meant
whole
to be talking
talk on
about
books.
art. So, going back around to art,
Yes.
I am not the arty parent. Nikki
Hmm.
is the arty parent. And just with all my kids, I've kind of would do art when they're younger. It's kind of
Hmm.
easy. Even I can do art with younger children sometimes. It might not be very good, but I can do it. But once they get older, the simple things that are within my kind of skill set are
Yeah.
just rubbish for a teenager. Let's be honest. And so it kind of can fall by the wayside. And I do think for myself and for my children, this has been something that's actually been quite sad and not
Hmm.
always a good thing in their home ed journey.
Yes.
Would you agree? And why does art in the teen years matter?
So, do you know when I was thinking about this before today, I actually get really excited about this question. This is just my thing because I think actually not only can you know children or young children, older children learn artistic skills, look at a vase and draw what it looks
Mhm.
like. They can also I think sometimes they want it to look like the thing so much that they lose that sort of enthusiasm for just playing. And so something that I really love and what I do a lot through my Arise classes and is I really want them to experiment with different materials. And so I've used the way that I used a material last year is slightly different from the way I'm using it this year. So, for example, oil pastels, you can use
Mhm.
oil pastels, pressing it quite hard, getting really rich color, covering quite a lot of the page quite quickly. And then you can cover it with watercolor and it resists. And again, you can fill in the gaps. And so I did a thing a while ago where we were doing sea creatures with another class, and we drew a big octopus in sort of really orangey yellow, really warm colors, and
Mhm.
then the background was very kind of dark navy blues, turquoises, and the zing of the two was just lovely, so you get this really lovely effect. But this year in Arise, one of my classes, we've used oil pastels to actually sort of copy the style of Van Gogh to do portraits. So we've used like little dashes all over, and
Yeah, yeah.
actually we've looked, okay, there's a darker tone under your eye or beside your nose or under your mouth or at the side. Okay, let's use a different color. So one girl actually used red as her darkest tone,
Ah,
yellow as her lightest tone, and orange as her mid tone.
mhm,
So what a lovely effect. And she actually used blue for the hair. And actually Van Gogh used color in such an exciting way. But also really portrayed emotion in it. So I think you can
mhm,
tap into in terms of teenagers in terms of emotion and things. How are you feeling? Are you feeling
mhm,
blue? Okay, let's do
mhm,
a portrait in blue. Let's kind of
mhm,
so you can definitely play with that. I also think it's so important to develop their creativity and
mhm.
to keep them thinking creatively. The world is changing so fast, and with the introduction of AI and things like that, where they're trying to copy different things, I think developing your skills and your creativity is just so important. And having, developing your own style and being playful, keeping a sketchbook,
Mhm.
working on a big scale, charcoal. I did charcoal this year with one of my classes, and I gave them big paper, and they all felt a bit intimidated. And I was like, okay, let's just play. Like, let's get
Mhm.
mucky. And, they knew the proportions of the face. And so I was like, let's just draw them, really big and work from there. And also the reality is that everything around us, everything we wear, everything we sit on, everything that's in our homes, book covers, the cars we drive, the shoes we wear, the furniture, everything around us has been designed.
Mhm.
So the world will tell you that art isn't important, and yet we are surrounded by designers' work
Mhm.
everywhere in our life.
Mhm.
And even a stage further, we listen to music when we're relaxing, which is artistic, so and I think a couple of other things I would say is that being creative, we just need to look at creation and beauty, and it draws us closer to our creator. And so looking at the seasons changing and keeping a little diary, or keeping a nature journal, or drawing things up close, or big, and finally, I would say that, like, with teenagers, it's lovely to show them, and I try to do this in all my classes, show them a wide example. So if we're talking about portraiture, I show them portraits that look like a face. They're facing the front, they're flesh
Yeah.
colored, but then I also show them Picasso's work and how
Mhm.
he shows the profile and the front in one picture. Klee's portrait, which is a circle with eyes, but then the rest of the features aren't very clear. And so, is this a portrait? Is it not? You're getting them to
Mhm.
develop an appreciation for the artist's ability and their way to portray portraiture. And there's an artist called Arcimboldo who makes up portraits all with fruit and vegetables. So the
Oh,
nose
I've
is a
seen those.
pear,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
things like that. And I think you can get them excited about art, and show them that actually they don't need to just look at a
Mhm.
person, draw them exactly. They can actually be really creative. And a way that they could do that is using magazines and cutting out different parts. Eyelashes, might be a rake from a gardening magazine,
Mhm.
with their eyelashes, or a diamond, on a jewelry page could be the pupil of the eye. Like, they can build this creativity and play. I think when it becomes too serious, they just feel like, oh, I can't make it look exactly like that. But for
Mhm.
me, it's so important that play is in there, and
Mhm.
creativity, just enjoying the process of using the materials. So I could talk about this all day. Can you tell?
Probably you've probably picked up with this conversation that during lockdown there was this whole kind of debate about what is essential work, if we were essential workers and we were not essential
Yeah.
workers. That it kind of made some people quite cross.
Yes.
Um, and one of the things that people pointed out was that in that period that yeah, we understand that the hospital workers were essential. That's that important. It's really important that sick people are being looked after and all of that.
Yeah.
But that as a people, as a part, as our humanity,
Yeah.
we sought solace in creative
Yeah.
art, whether that was in art, or if it was in music, or sculpture, or in literature, poetry. There was
Yeah.
this huge tidal wave of people just seeking out
Yeah. It's vital.
art.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes like this is actually there is an essential part of who we are, which I think it ties into what you alluded to about that we're made in God's image.
Yeah.
And God is a creator. God, He is part of who He is, and His that imprint is in us.
Yes.
And that idea when we come to our teen years,
Yeah.
and if we're not feeding that, we're not feeding that part of
Yeah.
who we're meant to be. And obviously, creativity takes many, many different forms.
Absolutely.
Um,
And actually, I even myself, I prefer working in certain materials than I do on others.
mhm,
And I've got friends who work very precisely with pencil or things. So yeah, I think we shouldn't neglect um that play, and being being creative. Yeah, it's vital. Yeah.
one of the things, so currently you're doing Art and Design 1 and Art and
Yeah,
Design 2, which is aimed at kind of those older teens, so 14, 15 plus.
yeah,
But one of the things we've recognized in the 2 years of you doing that is the need for the lower teens.
yeah.
And so we're introducing Intro to Art this coming
Hmm.
years in August 26. Can you tell us a little bit about this course?
Yeah, so it is separated out into different eras through kind of art history. And I think even sometimes that title of art history makes people kind of go, oh, but actually the beauty of that is seeing how materials have developed, how
Hmm.
different skills have developed, how around the world different things were happening at different times and it influenced the art of that time. So basically we're going to follow this these periods in art history and we're going to look at these examples and we're going to learn skills that go alongside those. And so there's some really lovely projects, mosaic and oh goodness, there's so many different things using pen and chalks and all sorts of different things. There's loads of different things. And again, it's a way of just encouraging that creativity, but
Hmm.
also understanding where things kind of occurred in in the build up to where we are now.
Hmm.
Because a long time ago, uh, the sort of acceptable form of art was that you would look at a portrait or a scene and you would paint it exactly as you see it. And I think now there's a lot of real kind of expressive work. And so the beauty of this course is that there's lots of experimentation with materials and a lot of the time I will introduce something to the pupils and allow them to kind of experiment and kind of play. So I think it's going to be a lovely course to teach, and I think the kids will really enjoy it.
So with the art and design courses, you give out a art kit. Is this the same for this one?
Yes, so we provide all the materials that the students will need. It'll come in one box, and the students are encouraged to look after it because they're going to need it for the whole year.
Hmm.
And in it, there'll be, sketchbooks, pencils, pens, all the things that they need for the whole year.
Hmm.
And it's quite exciting because it arrives in this lovely kit. It's like a goodie box.
Yeah.
And the students are encouraged to make sure that they have those materials for each class, but they have them to play with and experiment with.
Hmm.
And they get a big sketchbook and an A3 sketchbook. And yeah, just lovely big pages to work on and things like that. So yeah, it's really,
Yeah,
really
it's
nice.
I'm blown away by the quality of the stuff in the art boxes.
Yeah.
They're high quality, and he said, and it's all included in
Yes.
the price of the class. So when you
Yeah.
register and you pay your money, just before about a week or something like that before the class
Yes.
starts,
Yeah.
Nikki will mail out all the art kits to everyone who's enrolled, and I should everything's there. So you will the bits that you'll have enough for the class and the projects that Nikki's going to be giving you,
Yes.
but there will obviously be stuff left over, and
Yes.
it's awesome the stuff in those art kits, and you can see in the course description what you will
And there's
be
there's a
getting there.
few extra there's a wee list of a few extra things that the students are expected to gather themselves and to have. So they need access to a digital camera of some
Mhm.
sort, an iPhone or something. It doesn't need to be their own iPhone, but borrow somebody's.
Mhm.
A few things like scrap cardboard or things like that.
Yeah.
There's a wee list of things like that. But just to when you were saying there about the quality, so I have worked. My son started off at a Montessori nursery, and then I have worked as the art teacher at a Montessori nursery for the last, I think, 6 or 7 years or something. And Montessori, Maria Montessori herself, really believed strongly in giving good quality materials to children.
Yeah.
And it's funny because today I was there and I was working with a 4-year-old, and I have this beautiful box of good quality watercolor pencils, and I always take them with me for the children to use. And she used it today and she said, "Oh, look at that color, look how it's covering the page." And I said, "Oh, actually those are watercolor pencils. They're really kind of rich color and a kind of slightly chalkier, like I don't know, just covers beautifully." And she noticed. And so I said to her, that's the difference in
Mhm.
using good quality materials. And I know that often places are on a budget, but when you go somewhere and you use kind of rubbishy pencils, you can feel the difference, you
You
know.
can, yeah, yeah.
Um, so my aim is to try within a budget, because
Yes.
we to try and provide the best for the amount that we have, you know. Um, but yeah, it's been very fun researching the materials and putting together the list for the kits. And when the orders come in, it's lovely to pack them. And I always think about the kids as I'm sending off each box and things, and looking forward to working with them. And obviously this year we're coming to the end of this year, and you really grow fond of the kids that you work
Do.
with, and you really kind of get to know their little characters and things, and seeing their work progress as well,
Mhm.
and seeing them, you know, um, maybe hit a point where they're like, oh, I don't know how to do this, and helping them through it, and a bit more. So yeah, it's been a real joy.
Yeah. Finally, you've also published a devotional for children, haven't you?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that and where can people purchase it?
Yeah, thank you so much. So at the end of, well, just the end of last year, I felt the Lord prompt me to try and write a daily devotional for my son. As I say, he's just turned 12, and basically the whole summer he spent at the skate park on his scooter, on his skateboard, and became really skilled in what was
Mhm.
doing. But he became skilled because he kept practicing it and things like that. And he's at that age now where he wants to play computer games, and he wants to be out with his friends and things. And keeping that connection and growing his faith felt really important to me. And so I felt the Lord prompt me to write this devotion to tap into that passion of his for the scooter and skate park kind of culture. And so it's a 31-day devotional. Each day has a verse at the top, a little kind of blurb, a wee thought for the day. There's three questions which make them think, and there is prayer at the bottom. And at the back, there's space for them to make notes. So if they, on a particular day, if something comes to mind and they want to make a note, they can make a note in the back. And there's a little prompt at the back as well if they want to pray and commit their life to the Lord, and where to go from there. How do you build a faith when you're that age? So there's a few wee notes in there. So it's available at the moment as a downloadable ebook through Amazon, and it's called Ride with Purpose. By Nicki Bradwell. And soon I'm hoping that it will be available. I just have a few things to tweak on the actual printed version. So you order it online and it comes, the printed version would come to you. So yeah, it's exciting. And I've actually got a couple of other ideas for another one in the pipeline as well. So we'll see where that goes.
Wonderful. So if you're interested in Nikki's Intro to Art class, what age is this geared for?
So the newer course is 11 to 14, I
Yep.
believe,
Yep.
and sort of early high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
so those early high school years, we'll put the link in below if you've got an older child who might be interested in art and design and is gifted. But I'll link those down there too so you can just see them both.
yeah.
Um, if you're that kind of cusp and you're not sure where your child would sit,
Yeah.
send us an email and I will pass it on to Nikki because you don't want me making those decisions for your child and their art.
Yes, well, absolutely, because I find as well that some older children maybe haven't had that kind of introduction to art, and actually they would maybe benefit from
Mhm,
doing that. I've actually had a child in my class this year who is incredibly gifted and actually could have gone up a bit higher, but actually she's really benefited from practicing the skills and developing
mhm.
developing them. So yes, drop me an email or arise an email and it can be sent to me and I can give you some advice.
Brilliant. And I'll also link in for Nikki's devotional as well.
Yes,
Thank you, Nikki, for your time. It's
great.
always a delight to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.